Hello everyone, welcome to Lukman IAS. So today we are going to analyze the Hindu newspaper, and we are going to understand the most important aspects from this newspaper dated 5th of March 2021. So let us see the topics that we are going to understand today. We will understand these topics one by one. The first topic is Hazara ethnic group, and this topic is very important for the upcoming prelims examination. After that, we will understand about Indian Institute of Sciences in top 100 list in the natural sciences category. This topic is important for the mains examination. I'll make you understand why it is important. Okay, and after that we are going to understand FDI equity inflow crosses $51 billion. Okay, so this topic is important for the prelims as well as mains examination. It is important from the Indian economy perspective. Okay, economy perspective. After that we are going to see the next topic, which is going to be over the top platforms will not have to register. Okay, this topic is important for the mains exam. Then we will understand about India wants Chabahar port on key corridor. This topic is very important for prelims as well as mains exam. And at last we are going to understand a new topic, which is clearing a low bar. It is important for the mains exam. So now let us quickly move to the topics that we are going to understand for the day. Okay, so these topics, okay, so as you can see over here, the heading of the article says that 7 ethnic Hazaras killed in Afghanistan. So like these Hazaras are ethnic group, okay, where they are found in Afghanistan. And this particular information itself is very important, because in UPSC they ask questions in prelims in such a manner that match the following. On one side you may be given the names of certain ethnic groups, on another side you may be given, the locations where they are found. Okay, so this Hazara ethnic group, okay, Hazara ethnic group, they belong to Afghanistan. Okay, they belong to Afghanistan. So this single information, this particular information is very important for the prelims exam. Okay, apart from this, you don't have to focus on other parts of the article. Recently, 7 members, okay, from this particular ethnic group have been killed in Afghanistan. That's why they were in news. So what is important for us to focus is Hazara ethnic groups are found in Afghanistan. Okay, so having understood this topic, let us move to the next topic for the day, which is topic number 2. Now we will understand about, like, this topic says that Indian Institute of Science in top 100 list in natural sciences category. Okay, so which list are we talking about? We are talking about the university ranking list. And this university ranking list is published by, this QS. Okay, QS is an organization that publishes, international university rankings. It is known as QS World University Rankings. Okay, so in the recent ranking, the IISc, like Indian Institute of Science Bangalore, okay, it was listed under top 100. Okay, top 100 in natural sciences category. So we are going to understand, like what were the different categories in which universities were ranked, and we are also going to understand, like, in those listings, like which universities or colleges from India have seen their place, okay, in top positions. So here 4 Indian institutes, okay, 4 Indian institutions feature in the top 100 list of the QS World University Ranking under 2 subjects. Okay, so this particular ranking that was released by the QS World University Ranking, it is a subject wise ranking. Okay, so under the subject wise ranking, the like if we consider 2 subjects, one of the subject is engineering and technology. Okay, engineering and technology is considered as a broader subject. Under it there may be various different types of engineering and all. Okay, and the another subject category is natural sciences. Okay, so if we see this particular list over here, so this particular list, first list talks about the engineering and science, like engineering and technology. So the top 3 positions are held by, held by universities from the United States of America and United Kingdom. Like at number 1 we have, you know, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It is from the United States of America. At number 2 it is like Stanford University from the United States of America. At number 3 it is Cambridge University from United Kingdom. And if we talk about Indian, you know, universities or colleges, okay, so IIT Bombay, it was listed, it was, you know, in the list at 49th place. IIT Delhi was at 54th place, and IIT Madras was at 94th place. Okay, so when we talk about engineering and technology ranking, okay, so you know, like in the top 100 list there are 3 IITs: IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi and IIT Madras. Now if we talk about natural sciences category, in the natural sciences category, in the top 3 rankings, okay, there are all the universities are from the United States of America. At number 1 it is Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Then at number 2 it is Stanford University. At number 3 it is Harvard University. Okay, all these are from the United States. And at number 92 it is the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Okay, so here there are 3, you know, IITs in the engineering and technology category, and here at 94th place it is IISc Bangalore. Okay, so the thing is how it is important for the mains exam, because like, you know, nowadays university, like recently you might have, you know, read in current affair that government of India has come up with, you know, new education policy. Okay, so in the coming years in the examination, in the mains exam, you may find some questions in UPSC exam where they will ask about, you know, the progress made in education sector in India. They may ask question in various forms. So there you can list that, like, you know, there are Indian institutions that feature in top 100 rank in the, you know, QS World University ranking. You can use, you know, this particular information as a pointer in writing an answer wherever you are writing about, you know, progress that is being made by educational institutes in India, or like overall progress in education in India. Okay, so having understood this particular topic, let us understand the next topic. And before that, like, I would also like to share with you one more information. Like, you know, Jawaharlal Nehru University's anthropology. Okay, anthropology is a subject. Okay, it is being taught in JNU. This particular subject and OP Jindal Global University's law programs are 2 new entrants in the list. Okay, these, like, you know, JNU's anthropology and OP Jindal Global University's law program enters into this particular list. Okay, this is also an important information, and this is the only private, you know, university that features in this particular list. Okay, now having understood this, let us move further. So this is a very, you know, important article. This is important for your prelims as well as mains exam. What this article talks about, this article actually gives us some information about FDI equity inflow crosses 51 billion. Okay, what it showcases? It showcases that this particular article is important from economy perspective, Indian economy. Okay, economy perspective. So economy is a part of general studies paper 3 of your mains exam, and this is also there in your prelims exam. Okay, this is also there in your prelims exam. So we will understand, like, what is foreign direct investment. Okay, so this particular article talks about that foreign direct investment equity inflow crosses $51 billion. Okay, so it showcases that, like, India is nowadays getting more foreign direct investments. So what can be the factors, okay, that is helping India in getting more foreign direct investment? We are going to analyze those factors, and we are going to understand what do we mean by foreign direct investment. Okay, we will understand what is foreign direct investment. We will understand different routes of foreign direct investments and all. Okay, so we have understood that foreign direct investment has increased in India. Okay, so this is one information. So this particular information was given by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Okay, and this particular ministry has attributed, this particular ministry has said, like, what are the regions, okay, what are the reasons because of which we have received more foreign direct investment. So this particular ministry has attributed two reasons. Okay, what are those two factors that have helped, okay, India to get more foreign direct investment? The number one factor that it said that, like, government of India has taken FDI reform measures. It has taken reform measures in FDI policy. Okay, it has taken reform measures in FDI policy. Then second factor that has contributed to getting more foreign direct investment was, improvement in ease of doing business ranking. Okay, ease of doing business rankings. Okay, so these were the two factors that has contributed, that has helped India in getting more foreign direct investment. One of the factor is reform measures that was taken by government of India in foreign direct investment policy. Second thing is, like, India has made significant improvement in the ease of doing business rankings. So that's why the foreign direct investment in India has increased. So having understood this, the crux of the article, let us understand what do we mean by foreign direct investment. Okay, what do we mean by foreign direct investment? So what is a foreign direct investment? Okay, foreign direct investment. Okay, so what do we mean by FDI? We are going to understand about it. So a foreign direct investment is an investment which is made by a firm, okay, or an individual in one country. Okay, like that particular firm or the individual is located in one country and they are making, investment in some other country, some businesses that is located in another country. That is known as foreign direct investment in layman term. In generalistic view, this is the definition of foreign direct investment. But if we want to understand, okay, about foreign direct investment, we have to go into the detail how the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, gives the definition of foreign direct investment. So let us understand that generally the FDI takes place when an investor establishes a foreign business operations or acquires foreign business assets in a foreign company. Okay, so when does foreign direct investment happens? The foreign direct investment happens when an investor invests, okay, his money in a new business in a new jurisdiction, in a foreign jurisdiction, or he acquires the assets, okay, of a company in a foreign jurisdiction. In both the cases, it will be termed as foreign direct investment. Okay, so as per the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, okay, so Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, so this is cooperation, okay, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Okay, this particular organization gives the definition of foreign direct investment. Okay, like it has given the definition of foreign direct investment. So as per this organization, an investment which is crossing the threshold of 10%, okay, an investment which is crossing the threshold of 10% is considered as an overseas investment. Overseas means foreign investment. The Foreign Exchange Management Act of 2000, okay, which is governed by the Reserve Bank of India, okay, regulates the foreign direct investment policy in India. Okay, so how the foreign direct investment policy in India is regulated? It is regulated by the Reserve Bank of India, okay, under this particular act. What is the name of the act? The name of the act is Foreign Exchange Management Act, okay, FEMA Act. Foreign Exchange Management Act, it is in short known as FEMA Act. Okay, so this particular act actually is regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. Okay, and so this particular, the foreign direct investment policy is governed by the Reserve Bank of India in India. Okay, so this is the thing. So how does foreign direct investment comes in India? Okay, So how FDI comes in India, we are going to understand about it. So there are two routes, okay, there are two routes under which a foreign entity can invest in India, okay. What are those two routes? The first route is known as automatic route. The second route is known as government route, okay. So we will understand about what do we mean by automatic route and what do we mean by government route, okay. So what is automatic route, okay? Under the automatic route, the borrower can get a loan from a foreign entity without a prior approval from the Reserve Bank of India, okay. However, here the loan agreement has to be registered with the Reserve Bank of India. So under the automatic route, okay, an entity that is located in India, they can borrow money from a foreign investor, okay. Like a foreign investor can invest money, okay, into a business in India without the prior approval of the Reserve Bank of India. They do not require any prior approval from the Reserve Bank of India. However, like their contract has to be registered with the Reserve Bank of India. That's the only condition, okay. So this is known as automatic route. Now if we talk about, if we talk about government route, so under this particular route, what happens, okay, under the government route, in order to get a loan from a foreign entity, the borrower is required to submit, okay, required to submit an application with the RBI in the prescribed form through authorized dealer as specified by the RBI, okay. So under the government route, an investor needs to get the prior approval from the government, okay, prior approval from the government, okay, or a borrower means an entity, a business that is located in India. If it wants to get, some foreign investment through the government route, okay, they have to follow this particular path, okay. The borrower is required to submit an application with the Reserve Bank of India in the prescribed form through authorized dealer as specified by the RBI, okay. So this is known as government route. It simply means like, the business entity that is located in India and the individual, or the farm that is located abroad, okay, they do not directly need to speak with the government, okay. What they need to do, the borrower, or the business entity that is located in India, they need to, submit an application with the Reserve Bank of India in the prescribed form through the authorized dealer, okay, as specified by the Reserve Bank of India. This is known as, government route. So that's all that we had to discuss in that particular article. So having understood that, let us move to the next topic for the day. We are going to understand about over-the-top platforms will not have to register, okay. So this is the heading of this particular article. This article is very important. We will understand, okay, that recently you might have heard about that recently on 25th of February, the government of India, notified the information technology rules of 2021, okay. The government of India on 25th February has notified information technology rules 2021, okay. So that information technology rule is being endorsed by some entities, and at the same time it is being challenged in courts by some other entities, okay. So there are mixed responses in India about it. So that's why recently, the information technology minister, okay, has notified to the government that like OTT platforms, over the top platforms. What are those over the top platforms? The platforms like Amazon, okay, like Amazon, like we have Amazon, we have Netflix, we have certain these streaming services providers that charge for the content that they are providing, okay. You can watch some web series or videos over there, okay. There are many such platforms, okay. So this particular information technology rules 2021 tries to regulate that, okay, and this is, the government is not directly involving itself into the regulation part, okay. So it is a kind of regulation in which what is happening, it is a self-regulatory, it has been made self-regulatory, okay. So that like these over the top platforms can regulate their content themselves, okay. So it has given a 3-tier structure. we are going to discuss about what are those 3 tiers. Okay, so what has happened, the Mr. Javadekar, okay, like Prakash Javadekar, he has notified that over the top platforms will not have to register. Okay, like it was notified by the central government. Okay, and he has also said that no government nominee will be there in the self-regulatory body. Okay, so now let us understand that what is the full form of this particular Information Technology Rules 2021. Its full name is Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. This is the name, okay, of the recent information technology rule that was passed by the government. Okay, it introduced a 3-tier grievance redressal mechanism for the over-the-top platforms. What are those 3 tiers? Okay, we are going to discuss about those 3 tiers. At tier 1, we have a grievance cell, and this particular grievance cell will be there, in every OTT platform. That be over the top platforms will themselves be having a grievance cell. And at the tier 2, okay, there will be a self-regulatory body of the over the top platforms. Okay, there will be a self-regulatory body of the over the top platforms. And at the tier 3, an interministerial panel, okay, an interministerial panel to look into the complaints if they are not resolved at the first 2 levels. Okay, if a particular complaint is not resolved at tier 1 and tier 2, then that particular complaint will be heard by an interministerial panel. Okay, so it is at the tier 3. So recently what has happened, Mr. Prakash Javadekar has notified that no government nominee will be there in the self-regulatory body. The self-regulatory body is at tier 2. Okay, the tier 2 is the self-regulatory body of the over the top platforms. So here there will be no government nominee. But like if we talk about tier 3, there will be an interministerial panel to look into the complaints that are not resolved at tier 1 and tier 2. Okay, so this is about this particular article. And apart from this, okay, these over the top platforms will have to classify, okay, they will have to self classify content into 5 age based categories. Okay, these are 5 age based categories. What are those age based categories? These are universal, UA 7 plus, UA 13 plus, UA 16 plus, and A, which is adult. Okay, so these are 5 different kind of categories. And these platforms will be required to implement parental locks. Okay, there is a provision of parental locks for content that are classified as UA 13 plus or higher, and a reliable age verification, okay, mechanism for those contents that are classified as A plus. So this is all about OTT platform related things. So having understood that topic, let us move to the next topic. This is a very important topic, okay, for your prelims as well as for the mains exam. Let us see what is this topic. It says that India wants Chabahar port on key corridor. Okay, so what is this Chabahar port? Okay, so it is a maritime port. Okay, it is a maritime port. So Chabahar port is here. Okay, it is located in Iran. Okay, it is a port which is located in Iran. So like why India is interested into this particular port? Because like we have a rival port which is at Gwadar. Okay, it is known as Gwadar port, and this Gwadar port belongs to Pakistan, and India do not have access to the Gwadar port. And Gwadar port was made, okay, developed with the help of China over here. Both Pakistan and China are rivals for India in similar projects. So that's why it is important that India should try to get maximum access to the Chabahar port. Okay, India should try to get maximum access to the Chabahar port, which is very near to the Gwadar port, and this Chabahar port will give access to Indian shipments, okay, to move from Chabahar port to the Central Asian countries, okay, through Afghanistan, Iran, like that. So that's why it is important. So recently what has happened, the External Affairs Minister of India, okay, Mr. S. Jaishankar, he has, he has recently like concluded, okay, there was a 3-day meeting, okay, there was a 3-day meeting, and during the conclusion of, those 3 days meeting, he has notified India's position with respect to Chabahar port. Okay, he has said that Chabahar port should be included, okay, it should be included in the international north-south transport corridor. We will understand in our later discussion today itself like what is international north-south transport corridor. We are going to understand about it. So let us see what this article talks about. After then we are going to have a in-depth discussion about international north-south transport corridor. Okay, so India wants Chabahar port to be included in the 13 nation, okay, international north-south transport corridor. What do we mean by 13 nation? It simply means that international north-south transport corridor has 13 member countries. Okay, we are going to see what are those 13 member countries. Okay, and so this particular international north-south transport corridor extends from India to Russia. Okay, international north-south transport corridor extends from India to Russia. Okay, and expand, like this particular article says that, like, the international north-south transport corridor should be expanded also by including some other members, like Afghanistan must be included and Uzbekistan must be included. Okay, why Afghanistan? Because like what the External Affairs Minister is trying to say, that like make the Chabahar port as part of international north-south transport corridor. Once it becomes part of it, Iran is already part of that particular corridor, but like Iran has 2 major ports. The second port, Bandar Abbas port, is actually part of the INTC, like international north-south transport corridor. But the thing is, Chabahar port is not a part of it. So India is saying that Chabahar port should also be a part of this particular corridor, and apart from this, the international north-south transport corridor should be expanded. It should be made a bigger body by including Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. Okay, he has said like Afghanistan and Uzbekistan should be included in this particular body or in this particular project. And apart from this, what he has said, he has also said that Chabahar, like pitching for Chabahar in the international north-south transport corridor, which goes via Iran's biggest port, Bandar Abbas. Okay, so this international north-south transport corridor goes through Iran's biggest port, which is known as Bandar Abbas. Okay, so you have to remember, like Iran has 2 major ports. Number 1 is Bandar, okay, Abbas. Number 2nd is Chabahar port, this. Okay, these 2 ports belong to Iran. This is a very important information. Okay, these 2 ports belong to Iran. Okay, so, and he has also proposed, the External Affairs Minister of India has proposed that the land, that this particular corridor should include the land routes via Kabul and Tashkent, and it would form the international north-south transport corridor's eastern corridor. Okay, so under this particular corridor itself, if we include these places like Kabul and Tashkent, okay, if we include Kabul and Tashkent, Kabul is the capital of Afghanistan. Okay, then if we talk about Tashkent, so Tashkent is one of the major capital, okay, of Uzbekistan. So like if we include these things, so it will form the eastern corridor of international north-south transport corridor. Okay, so why India wants it? India wants it because like India wants to export its major goods, okay, that are being produced in India to the Central Asian countries, and India wants to deepen its tie with the Central Asian countries. So this international north-south transport corridor in itself is a very important very important project under which various countries, like 13 countries, are already part of it. And India has recently proposed that 2 new countries should be included in it. They are Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. Okay, so that's the thing. So this particular information, like or this thing was highlighted in a particular, kind of meeting, okay, where people were celebrating the Chabahar Day, and as part of the 3-day Maritime India Summit. Okay, so there was a 3-day Maritime India Summit. In that particular summit, the External Affairs Minister of India has notified this particular thing, and in this 3-day Maritime India Summit, there were like regional like ministers from different countries that have participated. These people were from Afghanistan, Armenia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Russia and Uzbekistan. Okay, so having understood this, let us move to the next topic now. Okay, so that was all in that thing. Now we are going to discuss, okay, like what are the members of International North-South Transport Corridor, where it is located. Okay, we are going to see the locational information. We are going to see the membership of International North-South Transport Corridor. It is just an associated topic, so that's why I am taking it as a next topic, okay, under the same thing. Okay, so let us discuss about it. International North-South Transport Corridor. Okay, so the entire topic that we were discussing about, okay, that was related to International North-South Transport Corridor. Okay, India wants that, like, this particular body should be expanded by including 2 members, Afghanistan and Uzbekistan, and at the same time Iran should, okay, Iran should like try to make Chabahar port as part of this particular International North-South Transport Corridor. Okay, so that's the thing. So what are the members? Okay, who are the members of this particular organization? We are going to discuss. Okay, India is a member of it, Iran is a member of it, Russia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Armenia. Okay, these are members. Apart from this, Belarus, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Oman, Ukraine and Syria. These are 13 member countries of this particular organization. Okay, once again I will name these members: India, Iran, Russia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Belarus, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Oman, Ukraine and Russia. And apart from this, there is an observer state also. So Bulgaria is an observer state to the International North-South Transport Corridor. Okay, why North-South? Because at the north we have Russia, at the south we have India. So this particular corridor actually gives access to various countries in the Asian subcontinent. Okay, so you can see in this particular continent. So like in India, Mumbai is the location from where which acts as a part of this particular corridor, and you can see over here Bandar Abbas, okay, in Iran. So we have Istanbul. Okay, Istanbul is also there, okay, in this particular corridor, and St. Petersburg, Moscow, these locations are connected in this International North-South Transport Corridor. Shanghai is also there, China is also included. Shanghai, then we have Lianyongang, then we have Dushanbe, we have other locations like that. So Chabahar is yet not included in this particular corridor. So India wants that Chabahar should also be included. Okay, so India will put its effort in the coming years or in the coming meetings of the International North-South Transport Corridor, so that Chabahar port is also included and its membership is expanded. Okay, so that's all that we had to discuss in this topic. Now let us move to the next topic, and this is going to be the last topic for the day. Okay, so this is topic number 6. We will understand about clearing a low bar. Okay, clearing a low bar. So what this particular topic is all about? This topic is about, okay, spectrum auction. Okay, spectrum, it is about spectrum auction. So we'll discuss about it. Okay, spectrum auction. What do we mean by spectrum? So simply see, these are wavelengths. Okay, these are wavelengths or frequencies. Simply these are frequencies in the radio spectrum. Okay, so that are auctioned by the government of India. So there are many private companies, okay, that that gets these frequencies for their telecom operations. Like for example, we have Vodafone, we have Jio, we have Airtel, we have Idea, we have various telecom operators in India, we have various telecom companies in India. These telecom companies are operating in India and they need a spectrum to operate on. So those spectrum are licensed by the government of India. Okay, those spectrum are licensed to different companies by the government of India. So how that particular licensing happens, okay, that is a discussion on a greater and deeper level. We are not going to go into that today. Okay, we are going to understand like what has happened recently related to it. Okay, recently government of India has conducted an auction, okay, to sell the spectrum, to sell the frequencies to these telecom companies, and government was able to realize, okay, realize means government was able to get, okay, more revenue out of it as they have expected. Okay, so they had expected a lesser revenue, but like they have got more than what they have expected by auctioning these spectrum. Okay, so this particular article also gives a suggestion, okay, to the government of India or to the interested parties that government should try to bring some reform into the spectrum auction process and various issues associated to it. Okay, so it gives some kind of suggestion. Okay, so the government must revisit the spectrum auction formats, unrealistic pricing and regulatory norms. So this is the crux of this particular article. It says that government must, okay, revisit means government must reformulate, okay, the spectrum auction formats, like how the auctioning happens for the spectrum, that should be reformulated. Okay, that should be reformulated. And apart from this, it also says that unrealistic pricing should not be there. Okay, as of now there are unrealistic pricing, like government of India is expecting very huge amount out of a spectrum auctioning. So unrealistic pricing should not be done. And at the same time, this particular article suggests that regulatory norms should also be revisited. Okay, so it says that the India's latest auction of the telecommunication spectrum is a qualified success. Means like it is not an absolute success, it is a qualified success. Why it is a qualified success? It is a qualified success from the center's perspective, mainly because winning bids cumulatively exceeded the government's own low expectations for receipt from the sale of airwaves. Okay, government had set a lower expectation, okay, from the spectrum auction, but like government was able to realize much more than that. Okay, so that's why it was a qualified success for the government of India. Okay, and it is this particular article says that it is little hard to fathom the government's approach to pricing this nationally valuable resource, especially given its avowed intention of accelerating the digitization of the economy, including the broadening and deepening of the digital delivery of the multitude of public services to India's farthest reaches. Okay, as you know that government has Digital India program. Government is trying to digitize almost all the services that the government is providing to its citizens. Okay, and at the same time government is trying to increase the reach of, okay, like Digital India program, and like government is trying to provide the services at the doorstep of households from the government itself. So the thing is that digitization is an important aspect. Okay, but like if government of India has very high spectrum auctioning prices, what it will do, it will reduce the competition. If the competition is reduced, okay, what will happen? The we will not be able to realize the digitization of Indian economy to the extent that we expected. Okay, so the thing is, it is imperative or it is practical that government should look into the pricing mechanism, and it should make it practicably practical, so that government can realize whatever it expects. That's the thing. So apart from this, this article also says that for all the brave talk on the auction's outcome providing assurance, the nation's telecom authorities need to take a hard look at the entire policy framework. Okay, so this article suggests that those authorities that are formulating the telecom policies, they should take a hard look on the entire policy framework that has contributed a fair share to the current like precarity in the industry. Okay, so this particular spectrum auctioning or like digitization, it has contributed a lot in the Indian economy. So the thing is, this particular policy needs some kind of revisit so that like we can gain more benefit out of it. Okay, so having understood this, let us see some other like things also associated with this. And the author says that from auction formats that may no longer be relevant given the sharply reduced number of players to grossly unrealistic pricing of the spectrum, the regulatory norms and the tax practices that threaten to tip the sector into a fractious duopoly, the government has its task cut out. It must now act quickly to ensure it does not end up hurting the very sector that has become a key multiplier of economic empowerment and progress. So, author is simply trying to point out that this digitization in India has contributed a lot to the Indian economy. Okay, and Government of India should make its policy, its taxation mechanism and other relevant things practicable. Okay, it should make it more enabling so that like greater competition place in the market. Government should not only look for getting higher revenue from like out of a spectrum auctioning. It should also think on a broader perspective so that like Indian economy grows more. Okay, so this is the crux of this particular article. Okay, if you want to learn more, you can visit the Hindu page itself. Okay, so that's all that I had to discuss with you for the day. Okay, I hope you might have understood all the things that we had discussed in today's class. Okay, so that's all that I want to discuss. And so if you want to like attend the ethics, okay, if you want to learn ethics, you can join our ethics foundation batch for 2021. Admissions are open, and you can also join our public administration optional classes. Okay, like ethics and public administration are taken by Luqman like Ansari sir. Okay, it is taken by Ansari sir at Luqman IAS. Okay, thank you so much for attending the session. I wish you have a good day ahead.